Everybody, welcome to the poetry vlog. Today we have Rachel Edelman, who's returning from last year, so this is your follow-up episode. In the episode, you'll learn where you can find Rachel online. You're going to hear a poem she reads herself. But Rachel, what do we talk about today?
We are talking about lineage. We talked about migration, we talked about inheritance and how we move things forward, and we talked about Hooray for the Riff Raff.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Everybody who's watching, at the end, if you're one of the students, there's going to be a specific call for comments. You'll get extra credit if you leave comments below. If you're like, how much extra credit? It says that on Canvas for you or on the syllabus. And then I also want to give a shout out to the Milliman Foundation for providing the equipment to record on, and then the Jack Straw Cultural Center here in Seattle for providing audio-visual training. So, two sponsors of sorts that help make the episode possible. So thank you to them as well. Everybody else, please enjoy the episode. And in addition to the call for comments, everyone else comment below with like, oh, hey, thanks, Rachel, because I think it's always nice when people show appreciation for the teaching.
Yeah, answer the question at the end. I'm really curious.
Yeah, perfect. All right, everybody, enjoy the episode. Welcome back to the poetry vlog. We're with Rachel Edelman. Rachel, will you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Rachel Edelman. I am a poet. I write essays and reviews, and I am a high school English teacher.
Yes. Where can people find you online?
My website is Rachel with just an E-L, S, Edelman, EDELMAN.com, and I am on Twitter and Instagram now as Rachel S. Edelman. I am super new to Instagram. I resisted for a long time. It's a lot of fun.
You might recognize Rachel from a past episode. We covered this in the introduction, so we're just going to hop right in. Rachel, will you start us off by reading for us?
Sure. This is called Stakeout Station. Rows of translucent ova line his lab bench. Heliconius, the butterflies my brother's flown halfway down the globe to coddle. He worries the hatch, microscope trained on one exterior. Lens to nest, no way to guess if the specimen is sick or crossbred sterile yet. As long as something comes out, it'll come to use. In the images he sends, I fixate on his fingertips. They're slim like mine and steady as he drops liquid beads from his pipette to the egg's rest. While my hands tremble at the finest tasks, his hold. He has always felt a pull toward fatherhood. I'm too cold to be called maternal. While this set gestates, its forebears, the few still flying, need him to trellis passion vines to mist nets, to seed their water with pollen and sweet. For him, they swaddle themselves in silk and emerge winged for slaughter. For him, the scalpeled abdomens, the tweezed ovaries, the spreadsheets he's left with to conjure their species' odds of survival.
That was really impressive. I'm going to ask you two things that are going very off script. One, how did you memorize that while maintaining such a direct affect in relation to the actual content, right? So it didn't sound like a recitation. It felt like we were moving through the actual scene with you. It had that kind of same eerie effect. And then two, I noticed you use your hand gestures a lot. And I know I have students practicing reading poems out loud. So would you mind you can be real quick about it, but just talking about those two things.
Yeah, I could talk about both of those all day. So the impetus for memorizing this was 2 years ago. I was asked by a colleague of mine at the middle school where I was working to lead a Monday morning meeting. And we usually had students do that, but like there was a week when teachers needed to do it. And so I and one of my colleagues did, and we decided that I was going to recite a couple of poems, and she was going to play viola, accompanying the poem.
That's really awesome, actually.
So,
was it like improvisational? Like she saw the poem you were going to read, but then played like as you read?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I mean, it wasn't totally improvised. We practiced.
Yeah.
And she came up with
so cool.
A theme, I guess,
that
she played behind the two poems that I read.
Amazing.
Or there were different ones per theme, and she had a loop pedal, so she would start with one. I don't even know what to call it.
Refrain.
Sure. One melody or something, and then would just layer on top of it.
That's awesome.
So I memorized it for that. Memorizing poems is something I love to do. I was a theater kid, so I was always like memorizing lines, and when you memorize lines for the stage, you have to be able to deliver them with the emotion of your character. So when I'm delivering a poem, I'm always thinking about what the poem is, what the words mean. They're not devoid of context. Even if it's somebody else's poem.
Perfect. And then hand gestures.
I talk with my hands. I have to control myself when I'm
me too, actually.
when I'm reciting or reading, because sometimes it can be distracting, honestly. So I have these like
See, I was raised in dance culture, so to me it actually does more. I like that you incorporate hand gestures. Like I find myself somewhat confused by poets that stand still because it perplexes me. It's like I feel like there's a disconnect between the like feeling or emotion of the words and the actual like embodied presentation of it. But at the same time, I know when I'm reading, I feel like I get to a point where it feels a little bit out of body. Like I get like kind of like hot and sweaty and kind of shaky. And then I feel like if I move, it's going to be totally erratic and like out of control. Like it's not going to actually add to it.
Well, I did, like there are certain movements that I associate with certain poems. Because I talk with my hands, as you can see right now. I don't want to like be chopping up the air while Shakespeare would say, like, do not saw the air thus, from Hamlet. And I always think about that. Don't saw the air. So, so I came up with like and because it's that poem references hands and these like very fine movements, there's some more movements that I would do if I were standing, but since I was sitting, I just felt those particular ones.
Perfect. And why did you choose this poem, and what does it have to do with the content you want to talk about today?
So I want to talk about lineage. I want to talk about intergenerational relationships to knowledge. I want to talk about how we understand what we've received and then how we retransmit it. So when I was compiling my first book manuscript about a year ago, I came to the realization that I had a manuscript about migration and one about lineage, and that they're related.
Like two different ones?
Right. I had two different manuscripts. So the one about migration is done. It is like being sent out in the world. It is, of course, in flux in certain ways, but in a lot of ways, I'm done with it. I'm not as engaged with that part of the question at the moment. I'm still thinking about migration, but the primary thrust of this new work is lineage. It's matriarchy and lineages of knowledge, of privilege, of power.
Yeah. And you sent me some music to listen to that you think also interacts with this. And it was actually, okay, so Hooray for Riff Raff, we'll start with.
Yeah.
I actually hadn't listened to them.
Her.
Just her.
Yeah.
I hadn't listened to her since I first left Portland 5 years ago.
Oh, so you had heard her previous album.
Way back.
Which was totally different.
Yes. And I remember, I love when, like, I've been bored with music, and then someone's like, have you listened to so-and-so? And it's someone I did, but a long time ago. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So then for, like, the last 12 hours, I've just been listening to, like, the same album on repeat. So can you talk a little bit about your new project, how you're thinking about lineage as both dovetailing with migration narratives, but also departing a little bit from it, and what that has to do with Hooray for the Riff Raff's music?
Yeah. So a little background on me. I grew up in Memphis. I was the 5th generation on my mom's side to grow up there. My dad is from Wisconsin. My parents met in New York. I was actually born in Connecticut.
My dad's from Wisconsin.
Milwaukee.
Madison. Well, Appleton to be specific.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. All right, sorry.
So like, in one sense, I felt very rooted in Memphis, but I also never felt like I belonged there. Though there is a very wonderful Jewish community there, I felt really stifled intellectually, and always knew that I would leave. But I didn't know that when I left, I would feel conflicted. I didn't know that I would be constantly referencing back to Memphis. In college, my first year of college, I remember a friend of mine, talking about how wonderfully diverse our small elite college was, and I was like, are you serious? And it turns out, like, our college was pretty much exactly the racial composition of the United States.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But I was used to living in a majority black city.
Yeah.
And so it did not look like that to me.
Yeah.
So the contexts that we come from build our awareness of the contexts where we then go. Yeah. And that was the obsession at the heart of Another Exodus, which is the manuscript that's out on submission now.
Yeah.
Dealing with that.
Is it called Another Exodus? Yeah, I love that. That's real good.
Thank you.
Yeah, nicely done.
Thank you. Yeah. So that's what it's called. And so it deals with that through sort of 3 major lenses. Jewish history of migration, ekphrastic poems about Jacob Lawrence's migration series.
Ekphrastic is
poems about painting, or really about any kind of art, but most traditionally about paintings. The migration series is a series of 60 paintings that tell the story of Black Americans fleeing racial violence in the southern United States. And then also what they found in the North. Spoiler, more violence.
Surprise!
So braiding that together with the trappings of whiteness and with my own family's history in a long poem. And then poems about what it means to make a home when you never thought that you would belong anywhere.
Interesting. Yeah.
So those are kind of the 3 strands.
Yeah. So how did you, what emerged when you started realizing these kind of lineage narratives with matriarchal narratives, and how was it at once both part of that original project and then cause a depart from the original project?
I think I knew when I was initially putting the manuscript together that these poems were different, that these poems thinking about a particular lineage and the idea of lineage, particularly the forward-moving part of lineage, were different from the migration poems. They were less about home and making home, and more about more directly, I guess the migration poems do address like how the stories how we understand the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. But the lineage, which is like totally borrowed from Arcely Skirmay.
Who's that? I don't know.
She's a poet. In her book Black Maria, she has this line: who would we who were enslaved be now, had this been the story we told ourselves about ourselves?
Wow.
And that's in reference to the story of the Exodus, of the Passover Seder.
Yeah.
And that, like, the Jewish narrative has this narrative of Exodus.
Yeah.
And that same retelling that we do at the Passover Seder, which Chelsea was a part of this year at my apartment, it has not been afforded to people of the African diaspora.
Yeah.
So there's this different valence of the lineage of our stories versus the travel of our stories.
Yeah.
And I know it's a subtle difference, but the Matriarchy Lineage book is much more interrogating motherhood and the way, I think I was not ready to deal with some of the complexities in relationships that women have with each other in a lot of the poems in my first manuscript. It wasn't a primary concern, but now it is.
Yeah. In the poem you recited / read, I think there was a line about like being too cold.
Yeah. I'm too cold to be called maternal.
And I was like, whew. That kind of like self-calling is really, really, it seems like a very simple thing, I think, for folks that haven't dug into that. But as like a feminist writer, and as like a feminist writer who comes from a lineage of needing to recreate lineage, that is an extremely difficult thing to grapple with. And what was surprising to me, I just am going by what I heard. So this isn't like I sat down and poured over the lines. But it felt like it was being read to me as very much a cold father figure first, who was like kind of dissecting this otherwise like reproductive or like feminized body, and like kind of treating it as a specimen. Okay. So when then you introduce that like too cold to be a mother, I actually was like, wait a second. I feel like there's this kind of problematizing of that mother-father figure in the first place, like that kind of reproductive unit or reproductive family unit as being necessary to carry on this like beauty or life or lineage, I guess would be the bigger framework. So that was a reading I had of it. I love that. I love that. Because then for me, it's like, this is a moment too, because I'm obsessed with coalition building, and my students know this too. And it becomes a moment where you can see how queerness and queer narratives can be in coalition and dialogue with a lot of this kind of these questions about diaspora, about lineage, what we carry onwards, how we create kinship and family without needing to return to a very like colonial, which I'm going to here, like concept of like mother, father, child figures, which could be a stretch. So you can be like, Chelsea,
no, I think that's totally on. And I have always found that structure of like matriarchy, patriarchy deeply problematic. And I think one of the reasons why I resisted teaching for a long time is because it is such a feminized profession. But it just so happens to be something that I really love now. And that doesn't mean that I'm attracted to the idea of motherhood in like a biological sense.
But then like vice versa, where you're like, well, I don't want to have kids, but that doesn't mean I don't want to take care of. Like on the one hand, I feel sometimes exploited as a teacher because not exploited, but like I understand that my students ask for favors and come to me with things because I'm not seen as like a male authority figure. And sometimes that can be burdensome because I'm like, I have my own work, I'm not your mom. But on the other hand, it can be like an opportunity or a privilege. So it just ends up being kind of confusing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I'm just like, I'm pretty strict in the classroom. And I set really hard boundaries. And I do all kinds of things for my students. But they are very aware when they ask for anything, like for a meeting, which I'm happy to have with them, that they are asking of my time, and they need to do so in a respectful and a courteous manner. I learned from some really great mentor teachers how to set that expectation. Just through my manner and the way I run my classroom. Some people might call that cold. But it's actually quite caring.
I agree.
Like, setting boundaries is a great way to teach students that they're in charge of their own lives. That they don't have to go with their friend to get bagels just because their friend is going. They can sit, like, they can go down to the cafeteria and they can sit with somebody else. They don't, like, they're in charge of their own bodies, of their own academic pursuits, personal pursuits, everything.
And I'm going to make a big jump real quick just because of the time. And how do you connect this to Hooray for the Riff Raff?
Yes. Oh my gosh. That album, The Navigator,
really good.
Came out in 2017.
I think there's some bomba beat.
I
was like, because I've done bomba classes. And I was like, brushing my teeth, and I was like, whoa. When I started.
So there are all kinds of, like, hand drums in there, and some norteño music, some bomba music, and she's mixed together all of these different lineages of music and these different stories of people. The song Recon Beach is about a massacre of Native peoples. But she connects that through the lyrics to her own self. She says, you can take my life, but don't take my home. It's a solid price. It comes with my bones. And that...
So unpack that a little bit for folks. So why did you memorize that phrase? Like, how did it stick in your bones, so to speak,
I mean, I tear up when I think about it. You can take my life, but don't take my home. I think of, like, that self-sacrifice as an act of preservation. That the speaker of that song is willing to throw herself down to enable her people, whether those are, like, her biological descendants or just her community, to exist. Because to have a home is to be able to exist, to subsist, to convene. And she says, baby, it's a solid price. It comes with my bones. It's engaging with the market while also being pretty cheeky about it. It's saying, okay, capitalist, come on, I'll give you what you're looking for, but you can't take it.
And it's calling it out for what it is as well, because oftentimes the way we look at things politically in the news, there's no explicit, we will kill these people for this land.
Of course.
It's always like, well, they're doing this, which is why they're dying, and we happen to be positioned to take their land so we can be stewards. It's never just like, we're going to kill you for your land, which is what's actually happening. And then in Palante, she connects it outwards to these other movements. So it's very similar to what you're doing with your project, actually, right? Where it's like there are these different migration patterns and different ways of trying to, like, subsist when lands are being taken, and also land has been taken, but we can connect them to kind of create this, like, persistence.
Palante, it's like an abbreviation is para adelante, forward. So with the migration project, I was thinking a lot about backward thinking.
What do you mean by that?
Like history.
I
was thinking, different languages have different metaphors for where history lives, but for me, history is always present, and it's always part of the narratives that I'm telling, that I'm braiding. And so with Another Exodus, I was trying to, like, braid and reconcile all of these different views of migrations in history. And with the new project, I feel like I'm trying to push forward a little bit more and show how we subsist, how we we go pa'lante.
I love that. I feel like I say the same thing by the end of every episode I filmed, which is just totally like the symbolic world I'm in, I think. But I think what's so fascinating to me about the two projects is that it very much captures how, in order to realize you need to move forward, you have to have a history you're critical of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's no point in feeling that propulsion onward without knowing that there's that kind of critical background that you're trying to move forward from. So it feels like there's very much in that song like an imagining of a future that's really also happening in the present because of the song itself. And like the naming of different people that might on the surface seem like disconnected movements, but she's naming as very much in coalition because they have very different histories. Right, like you're not equating Jewish history with Black American history, obviously.
Definitely not.
At all. But braiding is a really good word for it. 'Cause instead, it's like, how do they weave together so that we can create something that moves like forward?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, coalition building.
Yeah.
Like it is a braid. It is built from all of these different strands, and they intersect and they cross. And they might like fray each other a little bit. That's okay.
I love the extended metaphor. We'll just keep going. That's perfect. That's accurate. And the strands remain distinct strands.
They do.
You know, which is also important. All right, cool. Sorry,
Okay.
I got real cheeky.
No, we're good.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Chelsea.
I really
it is such a
appreciate
joy
it.
to be here.
And you're an amazing teacher. So I was telling her before we started, like, I'm slowly narrowing the window of who I'm going to record, and it's mostly now teachers.
Ooh.
So thank you for being so good at explaining things and being willing to engage in a level that's educational. That's a certain type of generosity. So appreciating. Remember to check Rachel's work out at rachelededelman.com. If you are watching the YouTube channel, it pops up on the screen and it's in the description below. If you're listening to the podcast version, it's in the description. And then we spelled it at the beginning of the episode. And then Rachel's also on Instagram, so I'll have those handles for you below. And of course, you can read the poem in its original context that Rachel read earlier in The Foundry, which is an awesome magazine. So like, kudos. Like, that's a real win. And I loved the poem as well. The call for comments today. What do you want people to say in comments if they comment?
Ooh, tell me what are your lineages?
Perfect. So drop that in the comments for us. Students that are watching, you get extra credit. That's gonna be a new thing I institute if you leave those comments which demonstrate you watched the whole episode.
Oh my god, how generous a teacher to offer extra credit.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm basically the teacher of extra credit. I'm like, just get an A. All right. I think that's it. Remember to follow the poetry vlog on Twitter, and I'm on Instagram. So is the poetry vlog, but if you go there, it'll link you to my personal Instagram. Don't be shy about following that. I just post all of it on the same one because it was too much effort to keep up two different Instagrams. So don't be like, oh my god, is she gonna like notice I follow her? I will, and I'll appreciate it. So you're good to go. And I think that's it. Sign up for the newsletter. That's the other thing.
Cool. Thanks,
All right.
y'all.
Remember to subscribe and like so you get notifications when new videos are up, blah, blah, blah. Thanks again, Rachel.
You're welcome, Chelsea.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, folks.
Season 3 is brought to you with support from the Simpson Center,
Also, the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation.
the Jack Straw Cultural Center,
And you, the students. Thank you so much.
and specifically 7 students that are doing all of this behind the scenes production. Find out more at thepoetryblog.com.
You're all saints. Thank you so much.
Exactly. Or you're like the anti-saint, depending on your
Same thing.
preference.
Yeah, yeah.